Okay, we have no one in the waiting room now, so we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. My name's Janet Catterall, and I'm the Senior Project Officer at Open Access Australasia. We're here to hear from Kathleen Shearer about the paper pledge for the planet. And I just want to quickly do the housekeeping is please, we're recording the session and please be muted unless you want to ask a question when we get to the question part. Just unmute yourself and jump in or raise your hand. We're going to, I'll monitor the chat as we're going along. So if you want to ask questions in the chat rather than unmute, feel free to do that. And I'd now just like to do acknowledgement of traditional owners. Open Access Australasia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and to Ngā iwi Māori, tagata whenua of Aotearoa. And from my point of view, I'm based in Gimoy, otherwise known as Cairns in far north Queensland, and I'm on the country of the Gimoy Wooloburra Yidinji, with Irraganji country on the coast and Jabagai in the forests. So I invite you all to post in the chat where you're calling in from. And what I'd like to do now is turn you over to Dimity Flanagan, who's going to be our facilitator. I think most of you will know Dimity. She's the manager of scholarly comms at the University of Melbourne, but she critically for this session is the deputy chair of OAA's executive committee. And I think she's been the primary contact in in Australia anyway, for the paper pledge for the planet. So I'll now welcome Dimity. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And first off, I would also like to acknowledge the lands from which I'm joining today. They are the lands of the Wurundjeri people in Naarm, or Melbourne. So really excited to learn more about the paper pledge for the planet. We've been doing a little bit of work at the University of Melbourne, but it's going to be a great opportunity to hear from Kathleen to learn about all the work that's happening across the globe. She is very well placed, given she is the executive director of the Confederation of Open Access Repositories. So I'll start with a quick bio for Kathleen, which is no easy feat given all the things she is involved in. So Kathleen has been a prominent figure in the open access, open science world for close to 20 years now. Over the past 15 years, she has worked through COAR to build a truly global coalition of repositories and repository networks, ensuring that repositories are recognized as critical infrastructure for open science in national and continental policies, and that repositories innovate and adopt good practices, which I'm sure she will have a very sympathetic audience for all that great work here today. She's based in Montreal, Canada. She actively contributes to numerous organizations working to advance open science, including Research Data Alliance, UNESCO Open Science Working Groups, as well as regional organizations such as LibScience Africa and the Canadian Association of Research Libraries. One of her major achievements has been leading COAR's next generation repositories and the COAR Notify initiatives, which have set new standards and practices to enhance repositories' functionality to meet the needs of the open science future, including repositories playing a more prominent role in the Diamond open access ecosystem by the publish, review, curate model of scholarly publishing, which we probably also need to get her to speak about on a webinar in the future. But with that, I will now hand over Kathleen to give a short presentation on the paper pledge for the planet.
Awesome. Thank you, Dimity and Janet. And I always feel a little embarrassed when people read my whole CV. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I understand that some of you may be already a little bit up to speed with the paper pledge project, and some people may be just learning about it for the first time. So I have kind of a blended presentation today, and I won't take up too much of your time with the presentation. This is actually the third webinar we already did two webinars in one in the European time zone and one in the North American time zone. And the idea was really to kind of catch up on the progress so far. But we realized actually in those webinars that there were also a lot of new people who hadn't really been involved in the project from the beginning. So hopefully I'll be able to cover those two bases. And what I'd like to do now is give you a short presentation just to make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm hoping that you can see my slides in full screen mode now. Okay, yeah. Thumbs up. Excellent. Yeah, so the history of this project is that it actually came out of an Arcadia-funded project that actually COAR didn't have any participation in. And the idea was that climate change is a really important topic. We all know how urgent it is. Everybody is feeling, no matter what country or region you live in, you know, we are feeling the impact of climate change. And so this would be a really good, shall we say, topic to bring people together around trying to get all of those climate change articles openly available to the world. And there were two aspects or two sort of parts of the project. One was to try to get the commercial publishers, the major scholarly publishers, to open up their climate change articles. And the second aspect of the project was to try to kind of crowdsource and get copies of published articles deposited into a repository. And so COAR and EIFL together have kind of taken on this part of the project. And the original project was really guided by Creative Commons, but they've sort of moved on, and I think they're not currently doing much around the published literature. I think there was, as we all know, all of us who've tried to engage with the publishers around getting them to make content open, this is a very difficult thing to do. And so I think they've sort of moved on, but we're still in communication with them, and EIFL and COAR have taken up the bulk of the work related to this. And so we launched the project in October around Open Access Week. I thought maybe I'd just give you a very, very brief overview of who COAR is in case you don't know. We're an international association. We have less than 162 members now, but about 150 members in countries around the world. And as Dimity said, we're trying to build interoperability in the repository network, but also look at innovative projects to improve the functionality and also increase the amount of content in repositories. So the idea here really around the Paper Pledge project is to kind of work with the international repository community, members or not members, it doesn't matter to us, to try to crowdsource and obtain copies of climate change articles and deposit them into repositories. And in a way, it's for us at COAR, it's kind of like a proof of concept to see whether it could work to kind of coalesce around a certain topic and really get the community engaged and starting to, you know, work and develop certain processes around contacting authors and providing them with a rationale and convincing them to give the paper and so on. So what we did was we started with a subset of the climate change papers that have published in the last 5 years. And this was actually Creative Commons that obtained list of papers that we have. And the criteria for these papers is that they were published in the last 5 years, that they're not open access papers. They're subscription-based, in subscription-based journals, but they matched the journal policy with the policies in Sherpa Romeo to see if the policy was like allowed deposit into the repository. So these were the criteria of the papers that we have initially identified for the project. And we have this list that was provided to us of close to 4,000 papers that fit into that criteria. And then on our side, COAR, with our technical consultant, Paul Walk, we matched the affiliation of the corresponding author with an institution and a repository. So we have this huge spreadsheet with close to 4,000 papers, and they're organized according to country and then institutional affiliation, which is based on the corresponding author's email. And then sometimes we have an affiliated repository where we're able to find them. And so we sort of launched this project. We have some material online, promotional material that can be used by anyone, and editable things that you can put your logo on. There's some like example messages on the website that you can use as text to contact authors. And then what we did was, as I mentioned, we organized the spreadsheets. This gives you an example of what you would see if you saw the spreadsheet for Australia or New Zealand or Singapore. And these are the Canadian ones here, I think. So, you would find the author's email, the corresponding author, and then you would be able to contact them with information about their article and ask them whether they'd be willing to deposit it into your local repository. So we got quite a bit of interest in the project, actually, by quite a few countries. So here's probably there are more countries involved now than I have listed here, but these were not the earliest adopters, but in the initial stages, these are the countries that contacted us and were interested. So sometimes we just got contacted by a repository manager that said they wanted their papers, and sometimes it was a national network like Open Access Australasia, or in Canada, it's also a national network that's working on this. So that happened in October, and then we had some webinars, I guess probably in November, to try to introduce the project to everybody and help them find the materials and get started with it. So here's, just basically what you might find on the website. Please feel free to go and check out and reuse any material that we have there. You're welcome to do that. And if you don't already have a list of papers from your country or your institution, please feel free to send me an email, or Janet, you may already also have a list of the papers. But what we're doing is we're not disseminating them based on institution, we're disseminating them based on country. So you'll have to sort of go through, if you're in Australia, the list of Australians, if you're in New Zealand, the list of New Zealand authors, and so on. And so that's sort of the end of my introduction to the project. And this next section of my presentation is really about the feedback that we've gotten already from people who have started to try to obtain those papers. And we do have, what we're asking everyone to put a link to the open access copy of the paper in the spreadsheets. You'll see a a column there to do that. And so we've got quite a few papers that have been made openly available, but we also have been getting quite a bit of feedback about some of the challenges related to this, which it's interesting, but probably not a big surprise to any of you who already work in this space. So, I mean, I think probably the first challenge was just like, well, the author didn't respond to my email. And so what can you do? You're looking for the author accepted manuscript, the author doesn't respond, and you're that's the end of the process. And then when the author does respond, I think it can be extremely challenging to find the author, for the author to track down the correct version of the manuscript. So we're talking about the accepted manuscript, not the published version, and they may not be able to find it in their files and so on. We have had some people that said that some of the journals that publish these articles did not actually allow deposits, so potentially the Sherbert Romeo information was out of date, that we got, or things like that. And then the last thing, which I think is, you can probably imagine what country I'm speaking about, but it's getting harder and harder in certain political environments to promote climate change now. So there are some people who are also feeling like, oh, well, now is not the time for me to reach out to authors specifically to try to obtain articles related to climate change. So I think, we're learning some things. One of the questions we have is, is it good to try to bring the community together around a specific topic, or, do some topics resonate better in certain environments than others? And so we're just sort of thinking through these various challenges that we've already come up against in many cases. But on the other hand, I think there are many participants in the project who haven't really even started, or have, who are just kind of becoming interested in the project. So I think those are like very initial, that's the kind of initial feedback we're getting. But I think, we still want to definitely continue the project and see how others, what kind of feedback we get from other people who are starting the project now. So some of the things we're thinking about in terms of next step is, well, I'll point to the second bullet point, which is we're probably going to try to take stock again of progress in the summer. A couple of months where Christmas was in the middle of it is really not enough time for people to really get underway with trying to recruit papers. And then we have this larger tranche of 44,000 papers, actually. So these are papers that have not been matched to journal policy. So they're just like basically all of the papers that have a climate change tag attached to them in OpenAlex that were published in the last 5 years. So we're thinking about what to do with those papers. Right now, it's a complete, huge spreadsheet mess of information. And it took actually Paul Walk, our technical consultant, quite a while to organize the original 4,000 papers. So we're trying to decide whether these papers could be useful, whether we should put the effort in to try to organize them. So I think we'll wait a little while to get more feedback from the community. In the meantime, there have already been people who've said they'd like to have access to those papers. So we're going to somehow post them online. So if you want to go through and like Control F for your institution to get more access to more other papers that might be of interest to you, you'll be able to do that. But we're kind of taking a wait and see approach about whether we want to do the effort of organizing them according to country and institution like we did for the smaller grouping. And then the last thing we're looking at, and I've already had a couple of discussions with 2 organizations about this, and with Irina Kuchma, who's from EIFL, is looking at a proof of concept, because I think it's always good to show the value, like what's the end value or what could be done with papers once they're openly available. So what we're thinking about is to do, there's a service at, it's called the Scholarly Knowledge Graph. I've forgotten. It's a German institution that has basically the open knowledge graph. ORKG. Now I've forgotten what it stands for. Open Research Knowledge Graph. And they have an AI service that they're developing. It's sort of, it's sort of trying to show what you can do with open knowledge. It's called ORKG Ask. And what you do is you ask it a question like, I don't know, what has the temperature increased in Montreal over the last 5 years or something like that. So it's not specifically focused on climate change at all. It's now a very broad service. And what we're looking at is trying to create a climate change ask service with that group. They're a research group, so they're not in it for money, and it's not a commercial group. They're trying to, develop, they're basically working on research concepts to try to improve the availability of and usability of research outputs. And so what they do is they use the COAR aggregation, CORE, based in the UK. They use that aggregation and they build their AI service, large language models, on that aggregation of open access content. So we're in discussions with COAR and the folks from ORKG to see if we could create a proof of concept around climate change AI service, kind of question and answer services. And then what's really nice about it is it gives you on the side, it gives you the references to the documents that it's using. And so I thought it would be really interesting to do that with our climate change literature, just so that, for example, if you're at a repository and your content is is part of this aggregation, and then you can show what kind of services can be built on content if it's made openly available. So I think that's basically the end of my presentation, and I guess I have two final comments. One is like, please, if you have any questions for me now, I'm happy to answer them. And if you've already started to embark on trying to recruit the literature at your institution, how have you found it? Are you giving up, or has it been successful, or what has been your experience?
Thanks, Kathleen. If anyone wants to put any questions in the chat or raise their hand, unmute. I can definitely give a little bit of a reflection on University of Melbourne, which we'll say the top challenge did happen to us in terms of no replies, but we got some replies. I think the first thing is we sort of jumped into it thinking, oh, we're going to have so many papers. This is going to be a really big project, because I don't think we realized at the beginning how it had been scoped. So I would say one thing is, jump into the spreadsheet, have a look, because you realize to because it is this global initiative and it has been scoped down to something that is manageable for every institution, it's actually not a lot of work in terms of making that initial outreach. And there are great templates on the website to use for the emails, and some really nice graphics that you can add to get a bit more attention from the email. I think we had around 5 on the list for University of Melbourne. One of them actually was already in the repository and just wasn't captured as open. So that was a quick win. And from the other 4, we've had 1 reply. It was very speedy reply, and we've made that open. And interestingly, it is about climate change in the Pacific. So it's sort of one of those things where it's like, oh, well, it's even better that we're making a paper on those lines open access, because obviously the people who wrote it, you should want to be reaching everyone in the Pacific, and they may not be able to afford those article charges. So that's great. When you got in touch to sort of say, oh, you know, how is everything going? That was something we needed to sort of think, oh, we probably should maybe send a follow-up to the people we did get in touch with, because it was November last year, getting close to exam period, hectic. So it's probably good to pick another time of the year just for a gentle reminder. I suppose it's one of those things, you know, it's not too much work to send out those emails, and you never know the benefits of even just making 1 paper open access. You don't know what the impact that will be. So, and it is, I think, nice to have the content, the topic focus. I think that gives us a new strategy for outreach. Generally, we focus a lot of our outreach around funder policies, but it's quite nice to do something that is a part of a global initiative. So yeah, it's been good so far, and I think we would be interested in seeing that larger list and thinking maybe we can get a few more papers in the repository. So I noticed Donna said there are only 20 articles on the list for New Zealand, so definitely a manageable first go, I would say. Yeah, has anyone been, Kathleen, in your talks in Europe, and I forgot where you held your other webinar. Has anyone been talking about other things they've been doing just beyond getting in touch with the authors? Like, have they tried to build any other activities around it?
Yeah, I mean, there was one person who said that they were trying to build a collection specifically around climate change, something like that. So I guess, you know, in a way it was like giving greater visibility, even within the context of their repository, that there was this collection of climate change literature, and, you know, sort of, so I thought that was interesting. I do have a sense, I mean, I think that's mainly the one initiative that I thought was really probably very boosted the initiative on campus for her. But I do think that some people get to their 3 or 4 articles in their institution and then they go, oh, well, it's not worth it. So I do think like that the rest of these articles might be helpful because, well, first of all, I think you can probably deposit your article accepted manuscript for most journals nowadays. And so, you know, it might make people also feel more, you know, energetic when they have a list of 30 or 40 articles rather than 2 or 3 articles from their institution.
That's true. I suppose it could go either way. Loretta has commented that Griffith University sent out their emails quite recently. Loretta did get in touch with me, and I was like, oh yeah, it's all pretty manageable. I shared our template, which is fairly similar to the one on the COAR website. Maybe cut down the text a little bit. And we have had a couple of other institutions express interest in being involved. I think the way we initially raised it was in one of the Australian Scholarly Comms COP network meetings. Just that if people were interested, they could get in touch with me. I have a feeling that, yeah, doing something more like this webinar, it's going to reach people who are actively interested, and not everyone would have been at that COP meeting. So I think this is a good opportunity to have a bit more of an official kickoff, really, to engage more people from Australia and New Zealand. Is there any particular country that's really going gangbusters?
The Japanese are very organized. So we haven't heard back from China. I mean, it's interesting because at least over a third of the papers were actually Chinese authors from China. So a big portion are from China. So it'll be interesting to see whether they are able to make progress in China. But I think the Japanese have done quite well. They didn't have a huge number of papers, but in terms of like the percentage of papers they've been able to make openly available is quite high. And I guess, you know, just in response, Dimity, to what you were saying, like, one of the things I think we can think about if we decide to do this again is really coordinating, get that national coordination happening at the same time as we do the official launch or something, and so we can kind of coordinate the promotional activities across our countries a little better, because it's sort of been, some countries start a little earlier, some start later, and so I think we could have had a boost maybe from more of a coordinated, maybe more work in the background first before we launched it. But this is all a learning experience anyway, I think.
Yeah, well, it's definitely sort of first time, right? So
we kind of had thought of doing this during COVID, but we just we weren't organized enough, because I think that would have been a good opportunity too, you know, because obviously everyone was desperate to have, you know, the most up-to-date information available.
We do have another question in the chat. I noticed some Crown Institutes government research on our list. So any advice on how to help them if they don't have repositories?
Yeah, well, we've just been saying deposit it into Zenodo, you know, but I don't know if that works well in Australia or not, using a European repository. Do you have any generalist repositories in Australia, or not really? I mean, I think the closer to home they are, the better, these articles, but in last case scenario, I think Zenodo, you could just people could just deposit it into Zenodo and put the link in the spreadsheet, and I think that still means that it's available and visible to others.
Yeah, this was for New Zealand, but I don't think New Zealand or Australia have any sort of more general repository infrastructure. That is something we fed back for the Australian open access plan that our previous chief scientist was working on, that it would be good to look at repository coordination. So Janet has commented that Open Access Australasia, for reports that we produce, we use Zenodo. So I imagine that most people in this community will be familiar with it.
Okay.
Perhaps the researchers potentially less so, but I think the fact that it has that CERN / European Union backing sort of makes it something with at least a brand that people can trust, which should be hopefully an easier sell in that sense. I will say, Donna, I'm curious though, who would do the emails? That's the other thing. I suppose we've been taking a very institutional approach, contacting people within our institution. So I don't know whether it would be that if there's, I don't know, universities in New Zealand that have connections, or if there's a co-author on the paper. I'm not sure how.
I think a couple of them belong to our New Zealand community of practice.
Okay.
So as a community of practice, we'll probably do it together. Yeah, we've got just a general open access one, and I know we have some of those Crown Institutes as part of those, so I'm sure we can help them out. Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, you've got quite a mix of people in your COP.
It's good when you're a small country. Space.
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like Donna is all fired up to make sure New Zealand win.
Good, Donna, you go.
That's true, but I mean, we do have the unfair advantage of 20, but actually not one of it is from where I work. So
Right. Yeah.
we did do a look on symplectic elements, just did a filter for all those, and we found 10 extra that we could look at.
Excellent.
But they're probably on that major list that you have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to admit, like the tagging is, is not done by us and may or may not be completely accurate. So I'm sure there's other climate change literature out there that, we haven't included even on our large list. So yeah, I mean, and if you can find other things that are relevant, I say, please go for it.
Loretta, you have a question.
Yeah, it's maybe just more of like a sharing or a tip. So we only had 5 articles, so it's pretty easy to like manually send them out one by one. But in general, when we reach out to our researchers asking for earlier versions, we use a Power Automate workflow to automate the process. It's a lot quicker. So I'm just thinking if in the future the plan is to upscale this and get, tens of thousands more, as a pragmatic approach, some institutions may want to even revisit their process in terms of how they communicate, whether it's what sort of workflows they use, can they automate it to make it more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. And I guess it depends on whether as a community we feel that it's worthwhile to step it up, shall we say, to another level, or to continue this. And so that's what I'm really interested to hear back from all of you about. Eventually, once everybody has started.
It does sound though like a thing that would be worthwhile sharing, maybe in the COP and between the COPs, if we did get to the point where you have to send out a lot of communications. I'm sure people have different types of workflow approaches for those sorts of larger communication scales. So could definitely do a sharing on that. That sounds like Loretta can lead that one.
It won't be me, it'll be my teammate.
Yeah, I think we've done mail merge type things in the past, and if anyone has a better way to do it, I'm definitely all ears. Rudy has a question around whether we should be tagging things once they are in the repository, like with dc.subject.
Yeah. We have not been prescriptive at all about that. So the way that we have been tracking it is basically relying on people to put the URL into the spreadsheet. So, but I do think it's something that will come up if we decide to do this artificial intelligence project where we're taking from a large aggregation of open access papers that come from repositories, and then we are building artificial intelligence models on a subset of those papers. How do we identify what is the subset of papers that should be included in this, model. And so I do think it's something we haven't really discussed it yet, but it may be something that comes up in the next check-in in the summer if we have another call. And after I've had further discussions with these two services.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear more around the AI model. I feel like it could be a double-edged sword in terms of some people would get really excited about it, but then we'll also have people going, oh, my paper's into the AI. So
Yeah.
I've heard both responses.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it really depends on how well it works, because if it's like hallucinating or, which happens with AI sometimes. So for me, that's why I really think of it as a proof of concept, not something, we really want to see whether we could actually build something that's of value and probably maybe of more value to the public than to a researcher who knows more, who has expert insights. So, like somebody like me who wants to know, temperature change over 5 years in Canada or Montreal, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm really interested to see whether we can build something that could be potentially of interest to the community and what community that is, and then how do we make sure that the right papers are part of the model. And that will then, I think we really will need to think about tagging potentially and how we do that.
I can see a great use case in schools, especially with the sort of accurate attribution, allowing them to go explore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Question, and this might be me also fleshing out an issue. How do we get access to the spreadsheet? Now, I know, Kathleen, you provided me with access, and then we also had a link in our Australian Scholarly Comms COP, potentially in the meeting notes. I think that later one, though, we don't have the ability to edit it, Janet, because I was looking at that version earlier in the week. And so I wasn't able to put in the OA URL.
Okay.
I went back to the one Kathleen originally shared, and I can access that one. And I assume, Kathleen, you'd probably want us to be inputting into the main spreadsheet because we need to get all those OA URL links in there.
Yeah, so there are now 2 spreadsheets.
I think we have created a copy that's on some.
You've created a copy, so I have no control over that one.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened. But I don't think anyone's put anything into the copy because of the edit rights. Janet, am I making sense? I know you're sort of probably dealing with this all on the fly.
I'm just looking back in the notes from that meeting for the link so I can have a look.
There are a few. Here is the original for Australia I'm putting in, and there actually are a few links already in there, which is kind of nice.
Yes, so this is the one we should be using for adding our links. Obviously, the copy is the same data in terms of chasing the papers, but if we want to put in the OA URLs, this is the original copy. I'm wondering where we could keep it or circulate it so that people can access it. Just something we need to think. I suppose we could circulate it between the Australian COP, the New Zealand COP. So this is the original for Australia. I suppose there's probably another one we need to generate for New Zealand, or
I thought we had one for New Zealand. Here I have the New Zealand one, which I will also put into the.
It's probably the one Donna's been looking at.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the one Donna has. But I also put a link to the AI service in the chat in case you want to go take a look at it. So it's a German university research center that is interested in open access.
there was a comment that SDGs might be a way to identify more papers.
Yeah, so that's exactly, so we've already had a discussion about that because the aggregation of COAR has tagged content according to SDGs based on whatever subject classification they have. But then we realized, so our last conversation with Peter Noth at COAR, who runs the COAR service, that there's not all climate change literature really fits into, you know, some of it may be, a lot of it is related to the SDGs, but some of it is not. And there was a funny anecdote that I think they were having a conversation with somebody who they were presenting the SDG, you know, tagging to a researcher, and he said, "Oh, but you've tagged my thing according to climate change, and my paper is actually climate change on Mars or one of the planets." So, so you know, these things aren't perfect, that's for sure, and there's always going to be some kind of challenges around that. But yeah, no, we did already have that initial conversation with COAR about whether we could match the climate change with the SDGs, but we think it's a little bit imperfect at the moment.
So that's all the questions in the chat. It seems like this webinar has definitely been helpful in engaging more people in the project, and I think likely everyone's going to go away and have a look at those spreadsheets and work out what the task is ahead. Janet will have a chat around how we can make sure those links are accessible beyond this webinar, so that people can continue to get involved. Kathleen, what happens next? Like, this has sort of been a check-in on progress around the world. Is it a project with an end date, or at least a sort of, you know, people can keep adding it, but the focus?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we'd like to do another check-in probably in June. And because again, like, there were a lot of people that were just getting started in these, you know, past several weeks. So I think we don't really want to decide what to do next until we give people some more time. But on the other hand, we are going to share the wider list of 44,000 papers with everyone, so stay tuned for that. I don't know, Dimity and Janet, is it best to send? Well, Dimity, you're on the COAR mailing list, I think, right?
I am, yes.
So yeah, the COAR members will find out, but I'm also happy to send it directly to you and Janet, so you have it. And I just have to figure out how to kind of create some kind of coherence, because it's very, very messy. So in the next few weeks, we're going to figure out what to do with that and then share it with everyone. And so you're also welcome to, you know, try to plow through that and identify papers. And I don't think it matters if two people, you know, accidentally ask the same author for a paper. I don't think we should worry about, you know, that kind of thing too much. I think at this point, it's just, let's see how many papers we can get. Let's check in June. And by then I might have more information about the pipeline going into the AI ask search and what that will involve, and whether, you know, there's general interest in that, in moving forward with that.
It sounds great. And the competitive person in me is like, okay, Australasia, we're gonna
You go. We would love it if you guys.
let's try and be the success story.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. And for those of you in Australia who are interested, we're having our annual meeting. Well, it's now called an annual conference in Tokyo in May. If there's anyone interested in attending, please feel free to get in touch with me. It's mainly for COAR members, but I would consider, allowing some people from Australia, this region, to come if you're interested. But also, I think we'll be having some of the sessions online, which might be okay for your time zone. So I can also be in touch with you, Dimity, about that, and whether and Janet, whether you'd like to offer access to some of those to people in the repository community in Australia.
Yeah, that would be great. And it's so rare that something's in our time zone. So that's
I know, right?
Donna, question.
Sorry, we're just having a Teams chat with a couple of my colleagues. If we find extras that we can make open, can we add them to the list?
Absolutely. That'd be great. I think, what we want is more things openly available. So absolutely, I think that's great. And that's another thing we should put on our consideration list, whether, we want to just document open access, climate change papers that are open access in repositories already, for example. And so, no, I would say, please go ahead, Donna, and you're welcome to add it to the spreadsheet.
Well, Donna's clearly wanting to come first.
I'm not. Well,
no, I love it. I love it.
I'm planning on. We're quite into sustainability. That I am. So I just want to make it. We do green impact. I don't know if anyone else does. And I was thinking of making it a project. So yeah, it's really good opportunity to push the green away as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. I wonder once into the future whether there will be any other thematic sort of
I think if we feel as a community like this is a success or a reasonable success, I think we should consider doing it with something else. Like maybe every year we choose one topic and we kind of get into something like that. I don't know. I think it's worth pursuing whether the community is interested in that.
And Loretta also said, can we look at adding grey literature as well? I know the focus is on journal articles, but
yeah, I mean, the more the better as far as I'm concerned. I think absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe at the end of this we could, I know something that comes up in the Open Access Australasia AGM strategy planning is often, it'd be great if we could use Open Access Australasia as a platform to tell stories or write about what's happening at our institution. But because this is so cross-institutional, I'm wondering if we can also sort of come June, reflect on our experience and maybe highlight all the range of topics that come through climate change. Like obviously it's a huge sort of breadth around whether it's economic, health, environmental, bringing that all together in a bit of a story might be a nice idea for a blog post, Janet.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's almost 12, so I know people will have hopefully lunch, but maybe another meeting to get to. But I really want to thank everyone for engaging in the conversation. It's made a really rich session, and hopefully will help Kathleen as well as she talks to other regions around what's happening globally. Kathleen, a special thanks for joining us in at a time that is friendly for Australia and New Zealand, and hopefully wasn't too late for you in Montreal.
No, it was fine, and I'm so glad I was able to talk with you, and let's have another check-in then in June or July, early July, and we can see how it's going.
Wonderful, thanks. Okay, well, have a great day, everyone, and have I guess a nice sleep, Kathleen.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.